Besides the general and the state visualizations, we also have some nice table visualizations, 2 specific ones and one more generic table. Let's start with the first one, and that's a parameter table. Parameter table can be linked to parameters, of course, and not just any parameter, but of course only the table parameters can be linked. So let's take our task manager, link it. We can see we have the same table visualization as we have in our monitoring app. There's one option available here, and that's a generic filter. Let's take an example. Here I have a filter that filters out some columns. So 2 columns are filtered here with ID 97 and one with ID 100. And then a second part of the filter is a value filter that filters out some rows. So in here we only display the rows with the memory usage higher than 1 GB. In the help you'll find a more detailed explanation on how the filter can be used and what options there are available. Second table we have is our pivot table. Let's bring that one in and see what we can do with it. We can link it with parameters again. So let's take parameters from Microsoft platform. Let's take the total processor load. See what it does. So we see that we have all the total processor loads for all our Microsoft elements in here. Let's see what we can do with a table parameter then. Okay, so let's go to task manager page and take CPU and memory usage, link it to that component. And what we see indeed the CPU and memory usage. And then we have the same elements again, but we can expand an element now, and we have the first 10 row instances displayed over here, and all with their CPU value and memory usage value. What is nice on this component is that you can also use filtering. Besides the data icon, there is also a filter icon here. Let's see how this reveals in the application. So if I click that icon, I can see what data can be filtered. And remember, clicking the green icon shows you what data can be linked. We'll click the filter again, and we see we can filter on a specific element. We can filter on a specific index, and we can filter on a specific view. Let's use the view filter. It's a new one. And then we see we only have the elements in the component here that belong to that specific view. If we look to the options of the pivot table, we see we can immediately auto-expand the rows upon load. We can play with what is displayed in a row and what is displayed in a column. So in here we have columns for our parameters, like we have configured over here, and our rows are split up between the elements and the indices. We can change that, for example, and move indices to subcolumns. And then we see we have one big main column, well actually 2 if we scroll to the right, and then we have all subcolumns for the instances. And we can play with it. We can move the parameters to the rows, we can move the elements to the columns, and so on. So let's go back to the initial version here and expand it again. Looking further into the configuration, we see we can configure our indices here, so that's those ones. We can limit it to 10, but we can also change that to only show 5 per server, for example. We can apply a filter or conditions. So let's start with a filter. That's just filtering on the display key. So we still have 5 items in our component here, but now they all match the filter, so they start with SL. Looking at conditions, we can specify one of our columns from the task manager table, and we can, for example, say, okay, let's only display the ones that have a memory usage greater than, let's say, 100 megabytes. And then we see we only have 2 processes in our backup server and 3 in our main. And we can add more conditions if we would like to do so. Next to some configuration options on indices, we can also apply similar options on the elements. So again, a limit on the number of elements and then also conditions. Let's try to add a condition, for example, on the operating system name. Let's say we want to have all elements or all servers here that are running a Windows operating system. And you can add multiple conditions which are applied on top of each other. Finally, we also have some sort options. So by default, we sort on the index name, but you can choose one of the data columns to sort on, for example, memory usage or CPU in this example. The last table is the generic table. Let's bring the generic table into our dashboard. If we click the green icon, we can see again to what we can link this. You can see that we can link this to what is called here queries. Queries is a very powerful concept and very advanced concept in our dashboards, and we will have dedicated training sessions on queries. For now, I've prepared one specific query, which is basically going over our elements in our DataMiner system, select some properties of that, and then apply a filter on the protocol. So let's have a look at how this is displayed. So we have a nice table here with some basic functionalities like column resizing, sorting in a table, also sorting on multiple columns. If you hold the Control key and then click your column. At the bottom here in the menu, you can also see that next to the data icon, we have the filter icon again, but we also have a new one, the grouping icon. Let's see how those two work here. So if you click the filter icon, we can see that for our query, we have some filter options over here. These are basically the columns of those tables, and we can click some of them and use them as a filter. So we filter the table on those columns only. Let's remove that again to show the grouping. So same thing here, we can use the columns here to group on. Let's, for example, group on protocol and see what this gives us. So a couple of elements are grouped under the protocol net inside Nimbra, and then there is one element which is a net inside Nimbra application manager. Let's go to the layout options. If we select our component, we can see we can apply some filters. If we, for example, select the column state, there is only one distinct value, but we can color it. Let's give that a green color, for example, and then we have our nice table here with one column colored in a color independently from the alarm coloring from templates or whatsoever. Now this is a color that you define in your dashboard, so you can use the alarm colors if you want, but you can also use some of the theme colors or just any random color that you can pick from the color UI in here.